how to prepare for Dawntrail. This is something I see a lot of other people talking about. I thought I'd share my own personal preparations for the expansion and basically tell you why. So first of all, as a content creator, it might be a little bit different from, maybe a regular player of a game, but I intend to cover as much as physically possible from the expansion, and typically I will look at everything from mounts, minions, glamour, all sorts of things. So I need as many currencies as I physically can access. So one of the first things I'll probably focus on prior to Dawntrail's obviously early access would be capping out on basically all of this stuff. The first thing then to talk about is the bicolor gemstone system. So this is essentially from the shared fate feature. If you know anything about this, under the travel section you've got the shared fate system, and no doubt I really do believe this will be the case since it's worked so well for the previous two expansions, is there'll probably be at page number 3. There'll be lots of shared fate unlocks, and with those come vendors with all sorts of cool stuff. So the way that we can use our time more efficiently is getting the cap of 1,000 of these bicolor gemstones. Typically there are all sorts of things, such as there are sometimes mounts, but most likely there's going to be minions, things like that, glamour. Sometimes there are fashion accessories. There are all sorts of things locked behind this currency, and it's a good idea to sort of do your shared fate stuff in the new areas and get that completed as soon as possible, because typically when you complete all of them, when they all say complete at rank 3, you gain access to another vendor in whatever the main city hub would be. So presumably this time it would be Solution 9, maybe even Tulialal itself, or both, right, typically. So that's one of the first things I would do. You can do the bicolor gemstone currency, which will be reused again. It's a presumption, but at this point it's a good likelihood in any of these zones. So doing fates in Lakeland will give you the same currency as doing fates within Mare Elementorum, which will give you the same sort of gemstones as if you were to do fates in Urkapacha, for example. So definitely something I want to look at, and that's the first thing that I want to get to the cap of 1,000 prior to the release of Dawntrail. Another thing I've been doing recently is actually doing hunts. Now, it's not something I typically would do, but there are mounts and other items, fashion accessories and minions usually added to the sack of nuts, right? So it's likely that we're going to get some more sack of nuts rewards. For example, we've had some in the previous expansions. If you go to the Sack of Nuts exchange, you will find that there's the Forgiven Retinence, which was a mount for 3,200. There's Orchestra rolls. This is the new striking dummy, so presumably there'll be a new striking dummy that might be available for sacks of nuts. And of course, it's always good to have sacks of nuts available, because usually you have access to new materia, right? So that's a good cheap way of getting materia, especially if you want to flip these on the market board. If there's a vendor that sells materia for this stuff in Dawntrail, and as soon as you access it, you might want to buy as much of the new materia as physically possible and make as much gil as possible, even if you don't need materia yourself. And then there's minions as well. So there's all sorts of collection items, but actually useful items. So I would suggest making the most out of getting your tome caps as well for your causality. Maybe get some Hildebrand weapons to give you a leg up for the expansion, but also your comedy, cap that each week. And you can do that very easily through the Falloop app or Discord system, where people notify you, and lots of people congregate to do S ranks and A rank trains. Here's an important one, especially on new characters. I went on my alt here to showcase where this is, in case you might not have done this. So something that's being talked about is that Yoshi mentioned in reply to what should people do to prepare for Dawntrail, the number one thing was to actually make sure you've done the Warring Triad questline. If you are a new player or a returning player that maybe never did it, you will actually find the level 60 quest, Gods of Eld. This is located in the Pillars of Ishgard. So from the Aetheryte, you teleport to the last vigil and then walk down next to Forton Manor, right over here with this character, Torsiphers. Torsiphers will give you Gods of Eld. This is a plus quest, and this plus quest will actually unlock the series of fights for the Warring Triad. It's a good idea anyway, because the glamour and items, and obviously there's mounts from those specific fights on extreme difficulty once you unlock those, but it's also a very integral storyline, supposedly, that's going to most likely become mandatory. They haven't specified if this is the case, but this will be a requirement for something in Dawntrail. It was mentioned that they wanted you to do this, so definitely do the Gods of Eld storyline. Once again, where this is located, Tossifer's plus quest right next to House Forton Manor, right at the last vigil. So if you teleport to the last vigil in Ishgard in the pillars, obviously from your Meoni, right, teleport over here and go down, and you should see this plus quest actually here. So bear that in mind. And of course, it's a level 60 quest that requires you to have actually completed Heavensward. So as soon as Heavensward is completed, the actual quest for Heavensward, the final quest for that base patch, you will see this plus quest available. That's the prerequisite. But yeah, that's one of the only things that I would say is something you should definitely do. Another thing you might want to do if you're a crafter or a gatherer is probably cap on your white and purple crafters and gatherer scripts. This is something I would suggest if you are going down that route, because typically there are other items you can get from a script exchange for even the old scripts, right? Whilst there'll probably be a new script setup, probably, you do actually have access to music, furnishings, and other miscellaneous items as well. This includes the engineering manuals, which are very important, of course, the boost to EXP gained. And we've also got the delineations, Souls of the Crafter, orchestrion rolls, housing items, all of this stuff, especially the housing items. If they are market tradable like these ones, you can flip onto the market board immediately. If you have those scripts already available, there'll likely be new stuff. And of course, there'll be new, presumably new gear as well, wherever the new crafting hub will be. Probably Solution 9 at a guess, or maybe not. Maybe it will be in Tulialal. But yeah, that's another honorable mention, is definitely look into your scripts and cap what you want to. Another thing I would suggest, probably as an honorable mention to sort of stock up on, is probably your wolf marks. Sometimes they offer new items in it. Well, they do offer new items in an expansion. There'll probably be new PvP gear at some point, if not initially, because there's a pre-season before 7.1, they say, and then 7.1 will be the start of a new season. But there will likely be some PvP gear. And of course, if you know already, PvP gear was pretty much turned into Glamour at this point, because it doesn't have any effects on combat itself, so you can wear whatever you want. But yeah, definitely save up on your wolf marks. A good time to do PvP would be now, especially with the Mogtome event. Go do Rival Wings or Onsal Hakir, because we've got the opportunity to where's the collections menu? There it is. In the Mogpendium, you can take part in PvP and get yourself some other rewards, whilst also getting 3 to 5, depending on if you win or lose in most of these places. There is also the Revival Wings PvP community that tries to set up hidden gorges. If you can definitely get in on those, you can get 2 mounts from 100 wins, I believe, from Hidden Gorge. And of course, there are the other PvP mounts and achievements and titles. So basically double dip as much as you physically can. Another currency I would suggest you capping out on is your Grand Company seals. This is something, obviously, depending on where you are with your Grand Company, you might want to cap out on those. The reason I would recommend this is because usually from the Quartermaster they add new stuff, and typically we've had some really interesting rewards. It'd be interesting to see if we get any new ranks to this. If you actually go to your profile tab on your character and click on the icon next to your Storm Captain or whatever captain you might be, you will see that this is the furthest we've ever got, right? Storm Captain. So you can presumably see these other ranks in the future. They have not added them in so long, so it's something I want to see added to the game. But even if they don't, and they don't add new ranks with new rewards, you can guarantee that the actual material section will be upgraded regardless of this. And if you go on the material section, right at the bottom of material, not materials, you'll see that there's the material container 3.0 and material container 4.0s. These are essentially gacha style boxes that you can spend 20,000 currently. That's what these cost. of your Grand Company seals, whichever Grand Company you're in. It's the same for all of them. On RNG boxes, this can contain mounts, minions, glamour items, all sorts of things, and it's a good likelihood that Shadowbringers will be brought into play for that. I would imagine there'll be hopefully some mounts that would be otherwise unobtainable. So there's always a good likelihood that these would not only make good gil for the start of an expansion by opening them if there was a new one, but also, finish off collections if there are any items you have yet to obtain. So I'm hoping for a 5.0 box, so I'm going to cap out on my seals. Another currency, since we're talking about them, to definitely see if you can get close to getting as much as physically possible. That's probably going to see a lot of new additions. I would be surprised if they didn't. They're talking quite heavily about gold saucer updates into the future, would be your MGP. Now, MGP can be obtained in a variety of different ways. We've talked about this in the past. There's lots of different ways to get MGP, either through your mini pot, your jumbo pot, which is drawn every Saturday. I don't know why there's a guy dead on the floor there, but, that's probably what MGP does to you. But it's also to make it rain on event on currently, so you can get 50% extra MGP from everything you do, all of the mini games and gold saucer activities, such as Fashion Report as well. Fashion Report is done every Friday. Definitely get that done. And if you're looking for other ways to get this done, there's also the challenge log for the gold saucer that gives you MGP for doing a variety of things like doing mini games and doing chocobo races. Definitely something to consider, because I don't want to be, left out when there's a new mount or something. Sorry, I forget which tab it's on. Here we go. On the others tab of Prize Exchange 3. The most expensive mount we've seen so far is the Blackjack for 4 mil. So I'm hoping that they have either a 5 or maybe a 6 million mount. That would be really cool. There's obviously hairstyles and things. Hairstyles are obviously really important to collect, especially some of the newer ones blow the older ones away. With a graphical update, some of the older ones might look better as well. Definitely something to look at. Parasols, angel wings, that kind of thing, fashion accessories. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the fashion accessory system. More recently with the Dawntrail release with that patch content, we gained access to a backpack, which is the first of its type. It's going to be really it's going to be curious to see where they go with this, what other things they can think of to be fashion accessories. Of course, there'll be lots of new ones from all types of content, but MGP is definitely something to cap or get close to, or get as much as you physically can prior to an expansion launch. Another somewhat important thing to do is actually to check out your inventory and retainers, clearing up whatever space you might have. For example, I use my retainers as a bit of a dumping ground for gear used for Fashion Report and other things, but also for currency and housing items from designs I've had in my head and then cancelled and then just stored things. A lot of these things you could either sell or obviously put into the storage of your house or whatever it might be. Event items, currencies, that sort of stuff. See what you want to spend, what you want to keep, and then throw everything else away. And if you didn't know it was there and it turns out to be garbage and you're not really sure if you need it, you probably won't need it. And same for your inventory. A lot of my inventory is taken up by tackle. Unfortunately, fishing is a very messy profession in the game, and hopefully they add an actual extra tackle box that is separate from the inventory. I doubt it, but it's definitely something I would put on the top of my wish list. We've got all sorts of old currencies, the Dena clusters and Anthro clusters. Definitely turn those into your materia. Another top tip for this is to convert materia or save as many materia as possible. Don't get rid of it, because if you go to Mutamix bubbly pots near Blackbrush Station in Thanalan, you will actually be able to transmute this stuff into new pieces of materia. So typically in the previous expansions, you would save your materia, not get rid of it, buy it if it's cheap right now, and then smash that stuff together and hope with RNG that you get one of the new materia, because on day 1, day 2, that new materia, the rank 11s and 12s, I guess it would be, of materia, will be worth an absolute fortune. So a good way of making gil, especially if you don't really care about the materia itself. A lot of week 1 raiders will be requiring that stuff, and obviously, the more people that do that, the better. that the market will be, the quicker it will stabilize, but also you might as well cash in on those first couple of days, make some extra gil. Other things to actually worry about though, just make sure you've got enough inventory space. An entire expansion of leveling, it gives you so much armor and so many different weapons and coffers and things and currencies. You want to make sure that you have a clean slate for that. Same with your armory chest as well, and your saddlebag. Make sure that any items that you have in here, for example, I've just hoarded a load of relic weapons. I need to put a lot of these into retainers. I had them there because, oh, well, there's nothing else taking up space. Remember, there are multiple levels for every single job, and even if you're only playing one job to level 100, you're going to have, what, 5-6 different weapons at least, space-wise. You know, clear out your helms and things like that. Just make sure that you have the minimum that you need in actual fact for your current equipped gear sets, and then everything else you either store, turn into Grand Company seals, or just completely remove from the game. Another thing that I see a lot of people doing, including myself, is actually preparing their characters with high enough item level as they can physically obtain, whether that be through re-clears of Savage content or just using the fact that they can get Savage equivalent item level gear by using the upgrade system. Remember that the actual stuff is unlocked now. You can get the Unsung Blades of Anabasios to get yourself a nice weapon. And of course, the coins from the Alliance raids for Endwalker, Aglaya, Eurocine, and Thalia, those are all unlocked now, including the gear, so you can roll what you want. You're not locked each week. So you can use those coins to actually exchange for items to enhance the tome gear. You can go to Nesvaz, click on Out of This World Oddities, go right to the bottom, and you'll see that you'll be able to exchange 3 coins for the Solvent, the Twine, and the Shine. So the Solvent is for weapon upgrades, so you can get a nice juicy weapon. Twine is for your left side, and Shine is for your accessory slots on the right side of your character. So all you do is go to your comedy exchange stuff, cap on this each week if you can, and purchase your Credenum stuff. Then once you've got that, and you've gone and done your Thalia, Eurocine, and Aglaya, got those coins, you then exchange those to for the Twine, Shine, or Solvent, and then you talk to Caldine on the left here, talk to the gear augmentation of your type, for example, Disciple of Magic for me, and then you'll see that you can exchange the 650 with the Twine for your 660. Now, it's always a good idea to get as much, gear to help you out as possible. A lot of people will be actually purchasing gear in preparation for their Viper and Pictomancer. Now, Viper and Pictomancer obviously start at level 80 with the expansion. So what people will do is they will buy stuff in preparation for the levels above that. So a good way of avoiding having to pay through the nose for things is if you are a crafter. And of course, the Master Recipes 10 stuff. If you are a crafter, then you might want to make yourself some Diadocos gear and augment that perhaps if you want to get the level 90 stuff. It's a lot cheaper to make these days than it was previously. Buying it from a market board is a pain though, but what I would do is I'd buy some basic like level 84 stuff, maybe get some dungeon gear, but a level 90 stuff to give you the best possible jump into that. Maybe have some stuff made for that. Or if you already play Ninja, then maybe get some stuff for that, the scouting things, and actually use your tomes on scouting gear and then use that from that. I think people who play Ninja will automatically have an advantage over people who do not, because they've been getting gear already up until this point. Other things for Viper and Pictomancer to be aware of: if you're into Glamour, then of course there are likelihoods that a lot of previous gear will work, right? Scouting related things, but there's also Viper and Pictomancer related weapons. If you play the benchmark, you can actually see some of those weapons and armor sets that would work. If you go to the benchmark and you create a character in a character creator and then choose from the drop down the preset of gear, there's actually it shows very briefly Edenmorn. So there's definitely some Eden related things. So one of the things that I've been doing personally is getting boxes, right? So I went back and I got the Omega weapon coffers. I got 2 of those. One's on my retainer, one's in my saddlebag. You can obviously store unique items like this. You can store something in your inventory, one in your saddlebag and one in your retainer. obviously. So the Omega stuff is definitely worth getting. The 405 item level stuff, there'll be a Pictomancer brush and palette from the Omega series, obviously from the final fight, and then there'll also be the Eden Morn stuff. I'm not so sure about Eden's Grace. I've got a coffer of that anyway, but it's most likely going to be Eden Morn. Probably some wing related items. I can't wait to see what the Pictomancer weapon would look like with actual angel wings on it. That's going to be a cool design. And of course, to go with that, I got myself the Eden Morn chest because scouting gear. Get yourself some nice scouting gear that you like. But that's how I've been preparing Glamour wise. Apart from that, I've been crafting lots and lots of dyes. And obviously obtaining as many dyes as possible for future Glamour options, because with the dual dye channel system, it's going to make it so that stuff that looks kind of drab is going to look amazing in the future, potentially, because we can change the way that the the colors that would normally clash, the bits that are undyeable, should be dyeable. So that's exciting. Obviously, the other thing to do is make sure that you've done your MSQ. If you're like me and you've hidden this UI element that pops up here, you can actually find this if you go into System, Character Configuration, and then UI Settings, then the HUD section. You can actually click, if we scroll down, Display Main Scenario Guide. It hides it when all quests are complete. Let's just untake that for a second. Unless you see this, then make sure you have completed whatever it is that it specifies you to go. This will always be a button that will take you to whatever the next main scenario quest is. It's an incredibly useful tool. Until it says to be continued, you are not done. Make sure you have obviously completed everything in Dawntrail, including the new patch content that was added. So obviously introducing a certain character to the storyline that will be taking you through Dawntrail, which is exciting. But you don't want to be caught short on day one. I know it sounds like a very simple thing, but it is something to be aware of and to make sure you're caught up. Otherwise, you're going to be obviously doing those quests into Dawntrail, which nobody really wants to do, right? No one wants to go back to the old zones, surely. And obviously another thing to do is to make sure that your PC can actually use Dawntrail. There is a benchmark available. There is an update coming to the benchmark very soon, however, which will show the updated graphics engine and some of the other tweaks that they've done. That should be posted on the Lodestone soon. But there is actually the Dawntrail benchmark, the previous version, that does still test to the limits of your PC. You can obviously switch between minimum specs to maximum options and see what your character would look like to some degree, and also test your frames per second, and it will actually give you a score at the end and tell you if your PC will work or not. Definitely worth doing prior to Dawntrail if you need to make any last minute upgrades. But at this point, if you're on a PlayStation, or of course if you're playing on Xbox, you won't have access to a benchmark and you're all ready to go. So obviously being able to play the expansion is important. But typically when you look at the minimum requirements, if you're playing 14 now on whatever settings, you should still be able to play Dawntrail, when it comes out on that same setup. But you probably may have to drop the settings a little bit in terms of graphics options, depending on how big of an impact it is on your system. It's very hard to give a overall answer to this, but that's what the benchmark is for you to test your own stuff and see. And you can download that in the link in the description. But yeah, apart from that, I can't really think of anything else I would do for Dawntrail apart from try not to burn yourself out. Take a break from the game if all of the above sounds boring, or you've done all of this stuff, or you don't think it really counters into what you want to do. Spend your time how you want to. There is a lot of really great games coming out soon, including a certain Elden Ring DLC, which I personally will be enjoying very heavily prior to the launch of Dawntrail. Anyway, if you've got your own tips and tricks or whatever you want to give as advice to people, maybe you've got some other ideas of things you might want to do prior to Dawntrail coming out that might be integral to your setup, feel free to leave those in the comment section. I would love to see people have somewhere that they can look for other ideas that they might have forgotten about, or I might have forgotten about, that might be integral. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your day. The lead up to Dawntrail is going to be exciting. It feels like it's dragging. It's a very long wait, but I am very excited. Anyway, more videos on the way. Much love, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.